everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. Midweek video for you guys. I want to chat a little bit about Saturn stationing and getting ready to go direct. Welcome back to my channel. Those of you guys who are already subscribers, if you're new, do me a favor, give me a thumbs up, say hello, drop a comment, and let me know where you're tuning in from. We've seen so much growth in the channel. Big thank you to all of the members and the subscribers. You guys are the best. Well, guys, Saturn is stationing in the sign of Aquarius at 18 degrees, and you bet your girl is feeling it. It's squaring my sun and Mercury. So let's see if we can even get this video out today. Wow, I'm going to take you guys kind of through a little bit of like a rollback through the Saturn in Aquarius transits since 2020. I'm going to touch on some of the most important kind of themes, talk to you guys a little bit about why a Saturn station is so significant, why this one is significant, and talk about how this is going to be really kind of wrapping something up, right, between now and March in regards to the Aquarius area of your life. So Capricorn rising charts, Aquarius rising charts, rejoice. We're getting ready to kind of finally finish up with Saturn's retrograde, and also those of you guys who have fixed signs between 16 and 20 degrees, you're going to feel it as well. So there's quite some intense energy in the skies when an outer planet is getting ready to go direct. Now, stationing meaning it's going to sit for several days at the degree that it will go direct in. So when a planet is stationing where it's getting ready to turn either retrograde or direct, it's very powerful. You can feel the energy a little bit more, and likely that's when something is getting ready to be revealed. Now that 18 degrees, we know that well, right? That seems to be like the real kind of pivotal point as a result of the North Node Mars-Uranus conjunction we had at the end of July. So we're feeling that as well, especially if you have planets in Scorpio, Taurus, or Leo. That is like an extra kind of kick there, and you're feeling the Saturn-Uranus square a little bit more strongly. Now let me give you guys the dates before I get into my lecture. The stationing dates are literally now. So as you guys are watching this on the 20th, you know, the 18th, the 19th, the 20th, Saturn has slowed down and it's hanging out at 18 degrees and 35 minutes. Now it will go direct on October 22nd. So the retrograde technically ends then. However, it's going to take a little while for Saturn to wake up and pick up speed. This will be the final Saturn retrograde for the sign of Aquarius. This is actually a retrograde that we've been dealing with since Saturn went retrograde around June the 4th of 2022. And what does it mean when we're dealing with a retrograde? You know, outer planets, Saturn, Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, these planets retrograde longer than, let's say, Mercury or Mars or Venus. The fact that they retrograde for so long, they take longer periods to kind of work on us subconsciously, internally, and also outer planets affect everyone, right? It affects like the masses. So there can be, when planets are getting ready to station and turn direct, a sense of some great unveiling that's going to be taking place. Interesting that just recently Pluto went direct at 26 of Capricorn, also in a Saturn-based sign. Now we've got Saturn going direct in Aquarius, which is different than Capricorn, right? Saturn and Aquarius, I connect to like the atmosphere, and whether that's like literally or the atmosphere that we're in, it's a fixed air energy. It does have to do with the masses. It deals with, you know, Aquarius in general, because its traditional ruler is Saturn, its modern day ruler is Uranus. It's about committing to goals, sacrifice, kind of setting things aside, feeling separate than others, and kind of marching to the beat of our own drum. And Saturn, God bless Saturn. Saturn, it's meant to feel like Saturn transits are meant to feel inherently uncomfortable, right? Stuffy, demanding. Saturn, the planet of karma, really is like that strict teacher or the parent that's like, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. Very Mr. Miyagi style. That's just kind of like get it into formation, do it right, do it consistently. Saturn stays in the sign for about 2.5 years roughly before moving on to the next sign. Taking into consider retrograde, sometimes those time periods can kind of fluctuate. But we have had Saturn actually in Aquarius since 2020. Maybe you guys remember in 2020, Saturn was going in and out of the late degrees of Capricorn, and it kept bumping into Aquarius. And every time it went to Aquarius, we saw that there was more social limitations. It would retrograde back into Capricorn. We would see lockdowns and shutdowns literally every single time we saw those retrogrades. Now, when Saturn is going direct, likely we're going to see reveals that are going to be taking place. It may take until longer where Saturn gets up into the third decan, so it might have to clear 20, 21 degrees before we really start seeing what Saturn's effect has been on everybody, and really kind of like the grand finale of what Saturn has been working on for the better part of the last 2.5 years. Now, Saturn won't move into Pisces until the spring of next year. It looks like it's going to be on March 7th, 2023. Saturn will leave Aquarius, move into the mutable water sign of Pisces, and join Neptune eventually a year or two later. So, you know, we're going to have some interesting energy here. Once Saturn's getting into Pisces, it's going to get close to Neptune. It's going to start sextiling the North Node. It's going to start sextiling Uranus for the next 2 years. And it will also make a sextile to Pluto briefly. Pluto's going to go into Aquarius. Lots of planets are going into new signs, basically, even the outer planets. So we're going to see a completely different new energy shift in the spring of 2023. Let me take you a little bit through some of the most kind of prominent times that I can think of in terms of the Saturn transits. So we're going to go back to 2020. Obviously, you know, we saw Saturn go in and out of the sign of Capricorn several times. I remember the one that I remember the most, this is the one I'm going to speak on, was in May and June. So I remember as it was moving into Aquarius, and then it went into Capricorn. First it was in March, then it was going to be in the spring, and then it retrograded back into Capricorn in July, joining Pluto and Jupiter, where we saw the triple conjunction happening in Capricorn. And then finally Saturn went direct, and it came into Aquarius to stay. And this was in December of 2020. Maybe you guys remember this. They were calling this the grand conjunction, where we had Jupiter and Saturn in the same degree. You guys remember that? So it was kind of hard for me to forget, because that was, I mean, I think for myself and many other people, it was like this back and forth that was taking place all 2020. And then finally this like realization that something new was going to be set in stone. So you want to look at where something was trying to break free in the Capricorn area of your life. Capricorn is about initiating something. It's about taking a long period of time, building something, stuff in regards to our legacy or our career. And then in December, Jupiter, the planet of expansion, Saturn, the planet of contraction, came together. This is when we have like a sweet and salty aspect. But I like the fact that Saturn is in its own ruling sign. I like the fact that Jupiter kind of joined in. It really made 2021 a very interesting year, where it was like we were making lemonade as a result of the limitations. I personally remember sitting around being like, what am I going to do with this year? You know, we've got, you know, Jupiter on my North Node, Saturn going through my 5th house. And I'm like, I got to find some way of having fun in a very kind of structured, detached, isolated way. Me coming back to YouTube was one of those things, but so was the podcast and being able to, like, you know, FaceTime with friends and talking to people at a distance. And yeah, it was a bit of a funky time. Several years of having Jupiter and Saturn kind of move side by side. So we've kind of gotten gypped on our Jupiter transits. But 0 degrees of a fixed sign, 0 degrees of any sign, is the most pure form of that particular essence, right? So as Jupiter and Saturn kind of came through, I think a lot of us realized at the end of 2020, like, this pandemic ain't going anywhere. We're going to continue to kind of see limitations and issues with traveling, and not really sure if we can socialize, and that really did set up most of 2021. But it was planting a seed, basically, for expansion and contraction. Aquarius is, like I said, associated with our goals and the masses and being a part of a group, and it's about technology and innovation and, like I said, the atmosphere. So the atmosphere was kind of like, here's the setback, but here's also where we grow. So there was a lot of opportunity through this conjunction, wherever Aquarius was in your life, to like really focus on how can I really commit more to growing in this area. And likely it's strange because Aquarius does require us to kind of band together with other people, a sign associated also with politics. So it's been a very interesting last couple of years in terms of like political stuff. Definitely a lot more division, a lot more people kind of banding together based off of their political associations. But we've also realized like how much we are influenced by the internet, especially in terms of like where we're getting our political information and like all kinds of new groups that were kind of created as a result of, I think, this conjunction. Anyways, my point is that this is a really important piece of the Saturn and Aquarius transit, not only because that's when Saturn finally really ingressed, but when it ingressed with Jupiter, so it's basically having Jupiter's blessing. And it may also talk a lot about further developments in technology and anything in regards to like artificial intelligence and things that might be kind of otherworldly. Pluto will cross 0 degrees of Aquarius, and that's going to be happening in the spring of next year. I'll talk about that in a future episode. I've got some stuff planned for you guys. I'm going to do a video on it. Probably going to talk about that definitely in my New Year's thing. Yeah, I think Pluto coming into this conjunction is really going to show us like whatever it is that you committed to, what you created might profoundly shift, transform, or prove to be very valuable, okay? Especially if you learned like how to work with like new tech or gadgets, or if you started your own group or kind of collaboration with other people. We'll see more of that when Pluto hits 0 degrees. Probably the second big bit of news, and we saw this off and on all through 2021. I'm sure you guys are sick of hearing about it, but this was the Saturn-Uranus squares. So just kind of briefly taking you guys through this. We saw Saturn and Uranus first come into the square, and that was happening in February of 2021. And this square was between Saturn in Aquarius. How could we forget February? It was gangbusters of planets in Aquarius, really kind of saying it's time to start something new. It has to be innovative. It has to be different, abstract, more intellectual, right? And maybe even on the airwaves. And it was in a hard angle to Uranus. So we saw this friction between the future and also, you know, like how it's destabilizing things for us physically or financially. I've thought all along that the Saturn-Uranus square was also just a reflection of like the groups of people who want decentralized media, banking, you know, exchanges, all kinds of things. And then there's the Saturn in Aquarius. That's like the political figures, the old timers, the people who feel like, no, like it's not a good idea to break away from some of these groups. Could have even been like larger companies that were really kind of driving, you know, an agenda to prevent people from having that freedom. But the Saturn-Uranus square represents that tension between the two and a certain group wanting to break free. Ultimately, you know, we're going to have to see what happens with this next eclipse to see, you know, which side of the tug of war is going to end up coming out on top. But this was the very first square that we saw. Then we saw another one that took place, and this was in June of 2021, and this was when they were moving up to about 12 or 13 degrees. Granted, Saturn was retrograde at the time of the second square. There were 3 exact squares in 2021, followed by the final one that happened right around Christmas time of 2021. And this is when both, actually Saturn was direct, Uranus was retrograde, and they were happening around 11 degrees. So 3 Saturn-Uranus squares. Take a look at where Saturn was in your chart. It was kind of the anchor that was like holding. It had the brake on. It was like, nope, we're not going anywhere. We have to do this in order to better stabilize Uranus and keep Uranus from just going like buck wild, right? From here on out, we are going to see that now Saturn is going to be direct. So Saturn's got a lot of power, you know, with the fact that it's stationing, but also because Uranus is retrograde. I think that that's going to give it a little bit more oomph. And then if I fast forward to now in the fall of 2022, it's like, you know, yeah, now the Saturn-Uranus square is back. We are not going to see Saturn go direct, like I said, until the 22nd. And it will go direct at 18 degrees and 35 minutes. Uranus is at 17 degrees. So the square is wearing off, basically. Now that Uranus is going retrograde and Saturn is direct, it is going to ease up, but not until after like the mid-November period. So we're feeling that pressure very much so right now. And then the grand finale is going to be the lunar eclipse in Taurus. And this is an interesting one. If you guys saw the video that I put out on this, we've got this lunar eclipse that's at 16 degrees of Taurus. Moon conjunct the North Node, exactly conjunct Uranus, in opposition to the ruler Venus, and with a square to Saturn. So this is like the Saturn-Uranus square being like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm still here. There's still tension. Likely we're going to see wherever the Taurus area of your chart is just where there's like a kaboom and something really shifts and transforms energetically, physically, financially. This is definitely a very financial eclipse. I've been listening to what other astrologers have been talking about, hearing what friends have been kind of speculating and talking about. My eyes got really big looking at the chart for the UK. Just looking at some of the squares and the things that are getting ready to be revealed there. So I'm anticipating that there's going to be lots of news financially about what's going on there with their money, their finances, their taxes, their banking, and how that's going to affect the rest of Europe and also the United States. The US is not in the clear either. We're having all kinds of stuff that's taking place actually in square to Saturn that's in the 3rd house. For us, it's more media, communication, freedom in terms of what we can say. We're in our Pluto return. Things are getting definitely heating up in the United States chart, and we're not anywhere near with being done with our Pluto return. So do a part 2 on that pretty soon. So, essentially, like I said, this is the last retrograde. So now that Saturn is getting ready to go direct, we're going to see it continue to keep moving forward until it gets to March of next year. And right before Saturn actually goes into Pisces, we will see like a Sun-Saturn conjunction that's going to happen. We're also going to see a Mercury-Saturn conjunction that looks like it's going to be happening right in the last degrees, March 2nd. So I have found that when Saturn leaves a sign or when Saturn leaves a house, it gives you a gift. So for many of us, Saturn going direct is just me kind of letting you know, like, hey, the teacher is back in the classroom, right? Like now you have to turn in your homework. You have to be paying attention. Now we're going to see if you've passed the class in regards to where Saturn is in your chart. If you are somebody who has been waiting until Saturn goes direct to fully commit to something, right? To sign on to something, to commit to a new schedule or anything like that, you may be doing that depending on where Saturn is in your chart. You may also feel the pressure start to build again because there's going to be more expectation to apply what you have been learning in the Aquarius area of your life and moving forward as Saturn kind of goes up in these degrees. So we will see quite a few squares to Saturn, and these are closing squares to Saturn. So if we think back to February of this last year, we had a number of planets that were conjunct Saturn, but the conjunction squared Uranus and also the nodes. So there's been kind of like a ping pong of fixed squares going on anytime anything crosses Saturn, Uranus, the South Node, or it goes into Leo. As I'm filming this right now, how ironic, the moon is in Leo, opposition to Saturn, square Uranus, square the nodes. Let's see if it's recorded. I should have looked at the astrology first, but that's okay. Essentially, like, now we're going to see things really ramp up, and there is going to be more of a feeling in the air, right, Aquarius, of seriousness, commitment, limitation, separation, anything in regards to just really leveling up. And when planets square the nodes or when planets are in opposition, squares, conjunctions to Saturn, karmic things are happening. So it's like even, everything that's been taking place the last 48 hours as the moon has been in Leo, it's been in opposition to Saturn, square the nodes. That tells me that there's been a need to kind of pull away from the limitation and go, no, that's too cold, that's too limited, that's not fun, that's heavy. I want to go more in the Leo direction. I want to be creative. I want to be loud and proud. And then it squares the nodes. So Interesting to see what you guys have been experiencing the last 2 days. Obviously, you'll feel this the next couple of days as it's stationing, and there can be some very significant things in the house where Saturn lives. So you might be committing to something, or it might be time for something. At 18 degrees, it has associations with health or anything in regards to like the service industry. Sometimes it deals with hospitality, pets, wellness, health, co-workers, workers, offices. So I'm wondering if this is going to be like the grand finale where we're finding out that we may never really fully go back to a normal schedule. We may never fully go back to working in office spaces. It may be like this hybrid thing from here on out, or there may be an incentive to get people to be working more so at home, or incentivizing people to really think more about having their own businesses, working for themselves, and being more independent. Now, who is this going to affect the most? This is going to be affecting anyone with 16 to 20 degrees of Aquarius. So 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, all of you guys are going to feel it. If you have a sun, moon, or rising there, pay attention. There can be some big things happening. And followed by the 16 to 20 degrees of the fixed signs. So if you're a Taurus, Leo, or Scorpio with these placements, sun, moon, rising, best believe you're going to feel it. You're going to feel like you're getting locked and loaded into something, and that you're getting ready to kind of commit. As much as Saturn wants you to do that, it's almost like bracing, okay? Just so you guys know, it's bracing for something, because when we have this eclipse in November on the 8th, it's going to destabilize. So all the more reason to really focus on where Saturn is in your chart right now, because it's really kind of getting you locked and loaded to better handle whatever wild thing is about to go on with Taurus in your chart. I'm now going to take you guys through the 12 signs, talk to you a little bit about what you've learned, where you're graduating in terms of the Saturn area of your life, give you a little bit of pep talk so you just kind of keep your head in the game and really focus on committing to this area and finishing up, wrapping up what's been 2.5 years of some very challenging lessons in the Aquarius area. This is going to be for Western whole sign astrology. I'm a Western astrologer. You're going to want to listen for your rising sign first. That's how you're going to make the most of my predictions. Listen for your rising sign, then listen for your sun sign, and then listen for your moon sign. Your rising is going to tell you where it's happening in your life. Your sun sign is going to tell you how it's affecting your happiness, your career. Your moon sign is going to talk about how it's affecting you emotionally. All are important. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and start first with Aries and Aries rising. What's up, guys? How are you doing? A lot of what I've been talking about applies to you. So we have got Saturn that is going direct in the sign of Aquarius, and it's happening in your 11th house. What is the 11th house? Goals, friends, networks, associations. If you've been trying to join unions, trying to join groups, starting groups, running groups, focusing on collaborating with other people, Saturn rules your 10th house as well as your 11th house. So it's got rulership over both. So really it's saying that it really relates to something you've been working with since what, 2017, 2018, when Saturn was hanging out in your 10th house. If you went through all of like the trauma drama in terms of your career, or changes and transformations or endings and new beginnings, now Saturn going direct in your 11th house is getting you really thinking about your goals and thinking about what kind of a team or a company do you want to work with? How do you want to collaborate? Are you working with friends? What are you building? Are you trying to build your own business? You know, the 11th house can be talking about what ultimately can be a business. So some of you guys have gone through so much change in your professional life that you're like, you know what, I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to build my own team. So if you've been doing that for the last few years, or focusing on your goals, it looks like there's something really prominent that's kind of setting up here. Obviously, you know that Saturn is still in a hard angle to Uranus. So there's like this theme of like, how much do I share with others? How much do I apply myself? How much money do I give away? Because really you're focusing on, with the North Node eclipses in your 2nd house, your bottom line, making your own money, becoming more self-sustainable, becoming more creative also in how you're making money. And you have to work with other people to do that. You have to kind of build a team, and you have to develop your own sense of talents and also values to be able to kind of make this work. So long story short, really pay attention to your goals and things that you've been focusing on. You might be working with friends. The right people might actually start kind of showing up and coming in. Yes, there's some pressure from finances, but don't lose sight of what the focus is, what the goal is, the fact that you're going to be building your empire, okay? Good luck, Aries. We've got Taurus and Taurus rising. We've got Saturn going direct in your 10th house, Taurus. Oh my goodness. It's been a really rocky last 2 years. I'm going to be honest with you. Saturn's been going through your 10th house. You know, having Saturn basically go through this particular angle to your ascendant or your sun is a difficult one. So it's not just because you've had Saturn in a fixed sign, it's because you've had Saturn breathing down your neck in the area of your career, basically trying to get you to really set the stage for what is going to likely be like the rest of the next Saturn cycle in terms of your professional life. So you've been building something the last 2 years that's basically going to set you up for the next 28 to 30 years. For some of you guys, it does require you to work with a team, Aquarius. For some of you guys, it does require you to manage, be the boss, navigate, you know, tell people what to do. Or it's about you showing up and having to deal with superiors and people who are kind of like holding you to strict timelines, and they have really high expectations for getting a job well done. Now, Saturn also rules your sister sign, Capricorn. So really it's been about your philosophy about work changing. And that was more so like 2017, 18, 19, where you were like, I want to create this lifestyle and I want to be able to travel, or, you know, I want to feel like I can teach or I can educate and be able to share this with groups of people. The last year or so has been like, okay, well, then it's time to build it. It's less about the preaching. It's more about the doing, showing up and just putting in the hard work. Been very challenging for you, Taurus, because you have seen that Saturn has been in a square to Uranus in your sign. So you have been a little crabby, a little cranky. There is a sense of you being like, I don't want to wear the suit. I don't want to have to clean up. I don't want to have to show up at a certain time. I want to do it my way. And having an issue with authority. So when people tell you to do stuff, you don't like it. So there is like a new version of yourself that's emerging. I think that you've been learning that part of being a good boss or being a good business owner is learning how to delegate tasks and not feeling like you have to do everything, and having an outlet for all of this energy that's in your first house so you're not having outbursts or tantrums. The good news is that this is basically saying all of the hard work that you've been putting into something is getting ready to just totally pick up in a very big way. You're going to start to really see the momentum. Saturn is associated with the 10th house, and the climb that Capricorn makes to the top. Likely you're going to see shortly after these eclipses that you're like, holy cow, like we've done it. You know, there's something really amazing and really successful that's emerging. So you can calm down a little bit. I also am very excited for you, Taurus, to see Pluto go into Aquarius next year, because it's going to be about all of the wealth and the fame or the expansion, or something really powerful is going to be happening in terms of that ingress that's just going to show you how strong you are and how strong you are with another person. So those of you guys who are in a business relationship, if you have a business partner, if you have an investor, if you work with your spouse, you're going to be like, oh my God, like we did it. And it's going to be really big. So hang in there. You're going to see all of this good work happening, long-term projects and things. If you've been waiting on stuff to like launch, they may start to kind of move forward. Good luck, Taurus. Gemini rising. What's going on? You got Saturn going direct in a sister sign. So Saturn in the 9th house, the guru, the philosopher, the publisher, the lawyer, the teacher, the traveler, right? There has been something shifting over the last several years for you through Saturn transits, where it was like you went through a rebirth phase after 2019. Saturn goes into your 9th house. Some of you guys decided, you know what, I need a new belief system. I'm going to learn something new. It is a merger between spirituality and science. Many Gemini and Gemini risings got super into astrology. That became your religion. Saturn being in the 9th house, it's a bit hit or miss. You know, traditionally, this is a house that we see that's associated with Jupiter. So to have Saturn go in this house, it's more about completing a program or graduating college or getting your certification or taking a long period of time to write and then finally publish a book. You know what I'm saying? Saturn also deals with other people's resources. So if you've been going through lawsuits, settlements, divorce proceedings, whatever, you might see that if these things have been delayed, they're finally starting to kind of open up. You may have felt limited, like you can't travel as much as you would like to. Some of you guys have had to travel though for work because of the squares to Uranus. So there has been a need to go back and forth to a place. But not a lot of like traveling for leisure or fun, right? Because Saturn is saying, no, you got to kind of adhere to a certain, strict timeline, or you got to, finish your exams, stuff like that. So it hasn't really been time for fun. But now that Saturn is getting ready to go direct, some of you guys might be like realizing like, yes, I have all the credits that I need to kind of finish my diploma. I'm finally turning in my manuscript and I'm going to have it edited and get ready to get published. I am finally, figuring out what it is that I believe in. Maybe you're starting to teach classes, right? Or maybe you're doing retreats. These are things that can kind of come up with Saturn in the 9th house. Obviously, the trines to your ascendant are wonderful. I'm sure you've just been soaking up all this goodness with all these planets in Libra here recently and those air trines. But the squares to Uranus have represented this shift between what you believe in and what you know. And that there has been like a sense of soul searching and trying to figure out like what your belief system is and how you can really integrate that into your evening routine, into your private time where you are either studying or you're connecting with nature or connecting with the cosmos, and using that to be able to kind of decompress. You know what I'm saying? All right, so good luck, Gemini. That looks good for you. Not as challenging for you as it is for some other people. Now we've got Cancer and Cancer rising. What's up, Cancer? You got Saturn going direct in Aquarius in your 8th house. Saturn has connections and associations with the 7th house of relationships and also the 8th house of transformation, psychological stuff, sex, trauma, joint resources. Really interesting. I mean, I think that obviously for you, Cancer, because Aquarius creates an inconjunct to your sign, this does rub you a little bit the wrong way. Saturn being in the 8th house is a limitation of joint resources. So it can be harder to get the credit cards, harder to get the loans, harder to bring money in, pay taxes, kind of wrap things up. You can also be dealing with like issues in regards to psychological stuff, clearing out bad habits. Really mourning the loss of certain friendships or relationships, because Saturn does have connections to your 7th house. So I can see some of you guys kind of like assessing like what the heck has happened over the last 2 years, like a relationship fell apart, or I lost a friendship, or, not feeling as either financially or emotionally secure as a result of some of the rumbles that have been happening between Saturn and Uranus, which is in your 11th house. Now, to me, this represents for a lot of you guys just this realization that there is a boundary, there is a border between being intimate and being friends. And these kind of rub up on each other, so there can be some friction. So whether it comes to intimacy in friendships or money in friendships, that Saturn square seems to kind of scream that there's problems here. Saturn going direct, for those of you guys who are in relationships or you're in business partnerships, or you're seeking more money from others, or if you're looking to kind of finally settle a tax issue or settle an inheritance issue, Saturn going direct can help you do that, right? Because Saturn rules others, and Saturn in the 8th house associated with death and inheritance or taxes. Once it goes direct, it can kind of help you sort some of this stuff out. I anticipate that has been the theme here about, what's changing on the home front, or what's changing in terms of your relationships with your partner and how you guys talk about joint money and resources, bringing more in. So if there's been this lack, right, of we don't have enough funds, or, we didn't qualify for the loan, you might see that things are going to kind of open up and there's going to be more possibility in terms of lending here very soon. Good luck. We've got Leo and Leo rising. We've got Saturn stationing in Aquarius in your 7th house. My goodness, Leo, hang in there. Every time the moon goes through Leo, I'm like kind of thinking to myself, who are my Leo friends I need to check on? Obviously, you know, it's been 2+ years of probably quite a few challenges in terms of either friendships or relationships, right? Saturn going through your 7th house has been bringing up all of these issues in regards to, should I be partnering with this person? Is it working? Do they need freedom? You know, clearing out something karmically in terms of relationships with other people. It's not limited to just like boyfriends, girlfriends, marital partners. It can be friends too, because Saturn in Aquarius does deal with karmic friendships. Counselors, right? Therapists can fall here as well. Very challenging because you have seen that Saturn has been showing you like who is worth committing to, or people who won't quite commit to you. And that square to Uranus in your 10th house with the North Node has been kind of like going to the top of your career. It's like you're going to keep climbing that ladder. You're constantly changing and kind of reinventing yourself and focusing on bringing in more resources, making art, making more money, like really being on top. And as these transits have been taking place in Taurus and these eclipses, it's been putting pressure on Saturn in your 7th, and it can be bringing up issues in regards to your partner where they're not meeting you halfway, right? They don't have the same professional goals. They may be struggling with like scheduling issues, you know, there may be problems because you're working so much and you can only have so much time for them. And, you know, that stuff can come up, but there can also be issues relating to relationship problems because Saturn rules your 6th house. So you might kind of realize that you're not really getting along with everybody at work, or that, you know, you and your partner really aren't on the same page and you guys have been having to work through some issues. And likely, you know, you're going to see that your career is going to keep growing and you're more, I think, aware and kind of conscious of who you partner with out in public. So you're putting a little bit more pressure on relationships or friendships, managers, anybody like that who's going to be kind of standing beside you out in the public eye. Has been very challenging. The truth is that I think the most challenging period was right around your birthday, but that means that a lot of you guys had a solar return with the sun square the nodes in opposition to Saturn. So some of you guys are going to be working with this still for a whole year. Watch out for the eclipses. You've got, you know, obviously South Node eclipses here that are clearing house, clearing home, clearing the past, drudging up stuff with family. Some of you guys are going to be moving. It's not all bad news though. I mean, I've seen the Saturn-Uranus square be like, hi, I really, you know, want to get married, or I want to get married again, or, you know, I want to launch a business. Do you want to do it with me? Or are you going to join me? Or are you going to commit to me? So after what has been a long period of these squares, it can be for some of you guys a turning point that's like, yes, we're getting engaged. Yes, we're moving in together. Yes, we're going to launch the business together. That pressure can kind of help you really break through, okay? So there can be changes in relationships though. I guess that's really what I'm getting at, especially with the eclipses that are coming that will square Saturn. You have to decide which is going to be most important. For some of you guys, you can have the relationship and the career, but if you have a partner that's not pulling their own weight, if you have a partner that is not handling the fact that you're more assertive or focusing on your career more or meeting you halfway, some of these relationships are going to go, okay? Good luck, hang in there, Leo. Virgo rising, we have got Saturn going direct here pretty soon in your 6th house in Aquarius. I would imagine similar to Cancer, because Saturn quincunx or inconjuncts your sign, it's a little uncomfortable. Some of you guys have had issues with health. Some of you guys have had issues with scheduling. Some of you guys have had issues with diets, anything in regards to just managing your health and your wellness, making time to go to the gym, put your laundry away, all that fun stuff. So now that Saturn's going direct, some of you guys might get health results. Some of you guys might commit to a new place that you're working. You might be committing to a new schedule. Some of you guys are having to kind of organize an office space or kind of set up a group of offices. Definitely this is interesting because you've also got Saturn getting ready to go, Mars getting ready to go retrograde in your 10th house. So there's a storyline here about like, okay, changing offices, changing jobs, changing direction, rearranging my schedule. That's connected here. So I don't know if some of you guys are accepting new positions, you're anticipating you're going to, you're looking for something, you're finally kind of like, this isn't the job for me, back to the drawing board. Something like that's happening. Been lots of friction because Saturn's also been in a square to Uranus. And even though Uranus is in a sister sign, right, it's in an earth sign, the Saturn-Uranus square is kind of annoying because to me this screams like scheduling issues, which affects your belief system and your philosophy, challenges with work, which limits your ability to travel. Some of you guys have had sudden opportunities to like hop on a plane, get away for a little bit, work remotely, as long as you're, you know, setting your office up to be able to do that or training people to handle things while you're gone. For others, though, it's been this realization that's like, I got to change my job. Therefore, I'm doing some kind of training. I got to focus, you know, on creating that time in my schedule to make it happen. You're learning a lot about getting down to details with Saturn in your 6th house and really figuring out the bigger picture of making time for the things that are going to bring you the most pleasure. So it's like, I'll work, no play is going to make Virgo very dull. And I think you guys are realizing through hang-ups with your schedule or health or with coworkers that you're like, I can't do this 24/7. I got to get off the hamster wheel. I need to set up my life in a way where I feel there's more balance and I have time for my friends and I have time to do all the things that I want. And for those of you guys who are focusing on being able to work more remotely or doing 2 things until you can finally make the leap next year, good on you. I think it's going to be great. And I anticipate that there's going to be some real breakthroughs and realizations about your worth that's taking place right now as well because of all these trines to your 2nd house. So those of you guys who picked up a new job, likely you're going to be making more money and you have to adjust your schedule. Good luck. For Libra and Libra rising, we have got Saturn that's getting ready to go direct in your 5th house. It's in a sister sign, so similar to Gemini, you guys do with this energy a little bit better. In the 5th house, Saturn has had you thinking for the last 2 years about what do I love, what do I enjoy, what am I creating, how can I express myself, how can I love myself more, and how can I have more playtime? It's kind of ironic having Saturn go into the 5th house because if you're somebody who's just like a workaholic, you realize that you have to actually schedule time for playtime or for art classes or to take yourself out to go and have dates or to go out with a significant other. Like you got to plan this stuff. A lot of you guys have been working your butt off really since Saturn was in Capricorn, and there's been this focus on trying to build a home base and also somewhere that you can you know, work potentially from because Capricorn's in your 4th. So some of you guys have been working from home. Some of you guys have been working for family, establishing family businesses, working your own businesses. And it's just been kind of grueling. But finally now with Saturn going direct, I think that if you've been working on that, you're really going to start to see the benefits of this. All these planets are in a trine to planets in your sign. So there's a lot of like creativity, beauty, things that are really syncing up where you're like, you know what, I think I can take a vacation, right? 5th house. I think it is okay to, you know, start having a little bit more fun or relaxing a little bit. Or I think it is okay to start making plans for children. Saturn in the 5th house has, for some people, been a longer period of trying to get pregnant. For some of you guys who already have children, it's like, oh my God, they've just been a handful. And for other people who don't have kids, it's just been about their love life and what's going on with their love life and whether it's just kind of feeling a little stagnant. So if you haven't been feeling the love, Saturn going direct and getting ready to move out of your 5th house is actually going to ease some of that up. Now, Saturn's been in a square to obviously the north and the south node, but primarily to Uranus, which is the ruler of your 5th house. So there's been a lot of like, I want to focus on having more intimacy, more connection, not just kind of like dating aimlessly or having hookups or one-night stands. There's also been a sense of being like, I want to create and really merge and grow and develop with another person or bring in more resources. So how do I do that? So intimacy, sex, children, you know, the cost of children, what it costs to be self-employed, the taxes that you pay. There has been a lot of tension there. And ultimately Saturn is saying it doesn't matter. You have to create, and you have to create without worry of whether or not something is going to sell or whether or not something is going to be valuable. The South Node transits are trying to get you to let go of this feeling that you always have to make money. And Saturn in the 5th is like, just do it. Don't worry about it. The money will come. And these squares to Uranus is about acknowledging that others will support you. So like crowdfunding, donations, people who give you gifts, or just things that pay off where you took chances and made investments could suddenly skyrocket. So something that you create can suddenly become very valuable and you can have a lot of people who are interested in it. Looks good for you, Libra. Let me know how that goes. Good luck. Scorpio and Scorpio rising. You've got Saturn going direct in your 4th house. Similar to Leo and also Taurus. I know Scorpio, I know this has been a challenging last couple of years. But for somebody who who has Saturn in their natal 4th house, I have to tell you, like, something really amazing happened after my Saturn returned to my 4th house. Once it went into my 5th house, I was like, oh, that's what all of that was for, right? Like, that's what all of the heavy lifting was for. That's what all the clearing was about. Now, the 4th house deals with home, property, family, roots, your private life. So this is like who you are in your house with the door closed. As Saturn goes through the most southern part of your chart, it does feel heavy. You feel confined to your home. You feel isolated. You feel alone. You do deal with home problems, houses that are falling apart, trying to sell places, trying to fix places up, taking care of parents, lots of having to deal with family. There's some karma that's coming up as Saturn's in the 4th house, and you deal a lot more with one of your parents, and likely they're coming and visiting you more, or you're having to just talk to them more. Now, Aquarius deals with friends. So the other way that I look at it is it's about you looking at building a family unit that may not be typical. It can be like, well, I'm not married, you know, I have roommates, I live with my friends, or we buy a house together. So it's doing something that's about creating kind of like a motley crew of friends that ultimately become your family. And we've seen over the last, year and a half, Saturn has been in a square to Uranus in your 7th. So where you've been kind of committed to being like, I'm staying in one place, I'm not leaving, I'm not moving, I'm kind of throwing the anchor over, you have seen all kinds of wildness going on with relationships and partnerships really since 2020. A friction between, Saturn and Uranus, where Saturn wants to kind of buckle down and commit and Uranus wants to go buck wild. So some of you guys have had makeups and breakups. Some of you guys have ended relationships, suddenly started new ones. And Uranus are the partners or friends or the business investors that come in and they're like totally kind of turning your life upside down. And they show up and they're like, let's get married, or like, let's relocate, or let's do this like crazy, business thing. And you're like, what? And it's very much out of your comfort zone. So you are one of the signs that has kind of like Leo really gotten rocked, because it's not just all of the changes that's going on in your your home life. It's also changes with your relationships. Now this is going to get furthered with eclipses, Taurus. So just keep a lookout over the next couple of weeks. You're going to see first, you're going to have a solar eclipse in your sign with Venus, which means you're learning to be more open to partners and relationships. You're bringing people in. You're talking to them about what you need. Then you're going to have a lunar eclipse in Taurus in November that's going to square Saturn. And likely this is going to be a make or break situation in regards to a living situation. So in your case, Saturn direct is very important. You may find yourself at odds with somebody who you live with. You may find that there is some tension between a relationship and also your home life. So if you know that you have like a mother-in-law that's a problem, don't leave them in your house alone with your spouse. If you are living with, roommates and you want to relocate or you want somebody out, you're going to end up hashing that out. For some of you guys that have been on the rocks in relationships for a little while, this can be like a turning point where somebody finally moves out, or somebody says, you know what, I'm done with the relationship, I'm leaving. And then you're going to have to deal with Saturn in your 4th. I have noticed that when Saturn's in the 4th house, even if you're in relationships, you live with people, there's people around you, you still feel lonely. So Saturn is trying to kind of give you this space to get you thinking about your 4th house, the foundation of your natal chart. Wants you to build something solid in terms of your family, your dwelling, your relationships, so you can build a really solid focus in your career. But you need a home, family, and relationships to be able to do that. So if some of you guys feel a little under the weather emotionally, some of you guys are also kind of feeling like you're not seeing the career advancement that you want, that's because Saturn is saying it's not about your career right now. Focus on your home and your family. Focus on your relationships. When these two areas of your life are happy and grounded, then you can build on your career, okay? Good luck, Scorpio. You're going to need it. Sag and Sag rising, you have got Saturn going direct in your 3rd house. Now, I like this. Sextiles your ascendant. You have also got Saturn that has been in positive aspect to Mars in your 7th, so it's opening up communication. Lots of room also for you to be focusing on friendships and socializing. But what is Saturn in your chart? Saturn does rule your second house of money and resources. Saturn also rules Aquarius, your third house, and that deals with the mind, communication, neighbors, traveling, business that you have online. I think that for most of you guys, it's like you're finally getting ready to travel again. You're finally getting ready to spend a little bit more money again. If you've been thinking about buying tickets to go somewhere, buying a car, if you've been thinking about moving, these things are going to start opening up as Saturn goes direct, and it kind of releases the pressure. Because Saturn doesn't just rule money, it's self-esteem, your spending power, and anything in regards to your talent. So there's going to be something that's going to emerge where you're like, writing or traveling, or you're sharing with people, or you're creating products and putting them online, and you're like, okay, now they're available. So if you know that you want to launch a podcast, a YouTube channel, if you want to write a blog, Saturn going direct is probably going to help you do that. Maybe it's something that you've been thinking about doing here recently with the support or the help of friends. But I've noticed a lot of Sag risings, it's like, oh, I'm finally traveling. I booked a trip, or like, I decided I'm finally going to buy a car, or I'm going to make the commitment, and I'm going to, buy the laptop. So Saturn in the third house will do that. But this is the mind, right? And how we communicate. And Saturn has been in a square to Uranus, which means that many Sag and Sag risings have been having a difficult time communicating because there's been stress with their health or stress with their daily routine. This is because Uranus has been in the 6th house. So whether it's stress at work, inconsistent schedules, going back and forth and not having, stability in terms of having, good health, that really puts a kink in communication and also kind of like your mental mindset. So the Saturn-Uranus square is coming back. You've got eclipses in your 6th house showing you where you make physical change with your health and your body. Eclipses in your 12th house where you're becoming aware of bad habits and self-undoing tendencies. And that square to Saturn is really encouraging you to just talk it out, communicate, answer the phone, send a message, tell people what you need, how you're feeling, and be able to kind of express yourself and communicate better. So if you've been having a tough time telling people what's up, you might notice that your communication opens up quite a bit. And boy, you have so much support from partners through this Mars retrograde in your 7th. All you got to do is ask for help. Good luck, Sag. Capricorn and Capricorn rising. I bet you're excited. Saturn's going direct in your 2nd house of income, resources, spending power. So obviously Saturn rules you because you're a Cap or a Cap rising, but it also rules your 2nd house, which is about your self-esteem, how much money you have, in your bank account that you can spend, how much money you're bringing in for your salary. Saturn in the 2nd, there's no real easy way to kind of put it. Like, it is a time period where for about 2.5 years, you have to tighten the belt financially. You can't go out to eat all the time. You have to focus on your spending, stick to a budget. That does kind of sometimes affect your self-esteem, and you're like, okay, how do I, manage this? How do I get by with less? And Saturn has also been about trying to teach you new eating habits because it rules your body. And it's also been trying to teach you about new talents, developing new talents that might be like really lucrative and important for you in the future. Aquarius is the future. Now, Aquarius, Saturn in Aquarius has been in a hard angle to Uranus in your 5th house. So for some of you guys, it's like, I want to learn this hobby, but I got to buy the supplies. And you're learning like not to go overboard, spending too much money on 5th house stuff, not going too overboard, spending money on vacations, not going too overboard, spending money going out on dates or buying your kids a bunch of like toys and, spending a bunch of money on parties. So you've had to get crafty and figure out how you can do things on your own. For some of you guys, it's about really looking at your financial situation and learning how to have fun without breaking the bank and not letting numbers in a bank account define who you are, right? There has possibly been some challenges for those of you guys who have older children in regards to money and spending and kids feeling like they need assistance, or maybe you're having kids that are having their own children and you're like, oh my God, how am I gonna, give all these grandkids gifts? It can also be about challenges in your dating or your love life, and where there's been like lots of instability with lovers or romantic partners, and how that's kind of affected your self-esteem, and you're like, you know, do I feel loved? Do I feel wanted? So bottom line is that if you've been experiencing a feeling of having lower self-esteem, feeling a little bit more stuck financially, or you've been having to kind of hold back, if you have been budgeting, if you have been making sacrifices, if you have been watching what you're eating, Saturn the second is usually like fasting or going through periods of eating less or spending less money on food. You may find that those techniques are actually going to benefit you through these eclipses. Maybe you've been saving money because you're taking one big trip. Maybe you've been saving money because you're like, I want to invest in something and it's in the market and it's speculative, or I'm waiting until things break down and then I'm going to buy some stock. It will pay off for you, Capricorn, and you are really going to feel this as this goes direct. I feel like you've been doing very well also because these planets in Libra have been in a trine. So there's like more recognition at work, getting more approval. There may be a sense also of you being like, you know what, I'm getting ready to take a second job, with Mars getting ready to go retrograde in your 6th. And it's something that you're like, maybe it'll be something, maybe it won't. And you might realize that actually it's really going to help you bring in more resources. Okay? Good luck. Aquarius and Aquarius rising, Saturn is going direct in your sign. Here comes back the grumpy face. Grumpy cat, rest in peace. You know, Saturn's your chart ruler, as is Uranus. It's been a total just, I don't know, it's been chaotic for you. Having Saturn in a hard square to Uranus, for many of you guys, this has been a realization that you can only really rely on yourself. And most days you're going to be like, is it all on me? Like, what the heck is going on? Saturn in your first house has made you realize that you have to have boundaries with other people, especially roommates, family members, or anything in regards to your property. Saturn being in your first house does make you more aware of your physical health, your body, your own happiness, how you can really take better care of yourself. And this is where it's a bit strange because Saturn also rules your 12th house. So it's either going to play out in terms of you learning to listen to your own intuition and your own guidance and consciously and willingly taking time to be alone by yourself in nature or working, or this is like a period where you kind of realize like, oh, maybe I'm part of the problem, because the 12th house is self-undoing. So as Saturn's on your ascendant and it's squaring off with Uranus, there can be some things that are coming up subconsciously where you're like, I'm subconsciously creating problems with my mom, or I'm subconsciously creating problems with my roommate or my siblings. And it can be this feeling of being like, get away from me, leave me alone. And then it creates a lot of strife in the home base because Uranus in the 4th house is just like stress, right? It's like constantly moving, electrical issues, secrets coming out about, you know, uncles and aunts, and finding out you've got like a long lost brother, like all kinds of weird stuff with Uranus in the 4th. So this has been more stressful for you, Aquarius. I think this is really big though, because those of you guys who have been experiencing feeling isolated, alone, if you've been like resentful because you feel like family has abandoned you, or if you feel like it's been really heavy on your shoulders, Saturn in your first house is like grow up time. And so maybe you're going to kind of like look at this period in the next couple of months and go like, wow, I really needed that. I needed to grow up. I needed to finally move out of my hometown. I needed to be on my own. And you'll have some appreciation for what you have learned over these next 2 years. Now, Saturn's still in a square to Uranus and the nodes, so this still makes me feel like over this eclipse period, over the next month, you are going to notice that, you know, there's new seeds being planted for your career. There is also going to be some eclipses that are taking place in your 4th house, which may insinuate you're finally moving, you're finally selling the house, right? You're finally kind of saying goodbye to a family member or an old situation. So there is still more of this like on your own energy, clear until about February of 2023. I guess it's all about what you make of it, and what doesn't, you know, it doesn't kill you, makes you stronger with Saturn in the 1st house. So stick to your goals, and you might kind of really feel like you're a completely different person than you were 2 years ago. And last but not least, we've got Pisces. Somebody said that to me recently. They said, I'm a last but not least Pisces, and I started cracking up. I'm like, okay, I'm never going to stop saying that now. You've got Saturn going direct in your 12th house, and the 12th house is an energy you're quite familiar with, Pisces. the subconscious, right? The bedroom, behind the scenes, things that happen in the spiritual realm, isolation, separation, but also connection to, you know, a belief system or temples or private spaces like hospitals, therapy rooms, stuff like that, sanctuaries. Saturn rules your 11th house of friendships, goals, or anything in regards to networks and associations. Being that Saturn is getting ready to go direct in your 12th house, if you feel like you've been isolated from friends, if you haven't been socializing, if you haven't been connecting with people, if you've been trying to get into private associations, secret groups, secret societies, if you've been trying to go and continue your education, if you've been trying to travel to a foreign place, these things can all move forward. I feel like there's some like karmic clearing going on with friends, where there's like certain friends that you just don't communicate with anymore, or the friends that you do have are in other places, or it's like hard to connect with them. And that's getting ready to wrap up as well. Like I said, Saturn in the 12th, it is isolated. So you should have learned by now that like meditation is your best friend. It's really important to develop some kind of like faith or belief system that you can like practice almost like in a religious sense. But it may be like a tweak. It may be astrology, right, Aquarius? It may be more like of a scientific kind of study. Some of you guys are wanting to do research. Some of you guys are wanting to be behind the scenes and doing stuff that's in private rooms, offices. Some of you guys are wanting to be behind camera, and you're thinking more about filming and traveling or documenting something and being able to kind of collaborate. So those of you guys who work in the industry of, you know, production, you could be behind the scenes editing stuff, you could be behind the camera filming things, stuff like that. For the most part, you know, this is an interesting time, Pisces, because this is like when you're finishing something up. I've always noticed with clients when they have Saturn that's going direct in their 12th house right before it crosses their ascendant, which it will for you in March, it's almost like I got to get everything ready before there's this grand reveal. So you may be really kind of focusing on your goals and showing groups of people what you've been working on behind the scenes the last few years, what you've been putting together, where you've been able to kind of make your dreams a reality and kind of have this like grand reveal in March of 2022. So this is a very important time for you. You have to kind of keep your head in the game. You can't space off and disassociate and not check in and like not get things done. I think also with the eclipses, it's going to show you that there are definitive endings that are going to be coming for you, especially with the one in November with the squares to Saturn, right? So there's definitive endings or things that are going on globally, which affects the way that you communicate. It also affects where you can and cannot travel or go to school. And it may feel with that eclipse that you're like, okay, well, that ended and that ended and that ended. So now what? And you're going to have to kind of put some pieces of things together in the December period, and you may have some plans that change in regards to your living situation or ultimately where you were planning on traveling, and also just like a regrouping when it comes to your career. Thankfully, Jupiter is going retrograde back into your sign, so Jupiter and Neptune are on your side. They're saying, you know what, if things fall apart, think about it, give it up to Source, pray about it, ask for assistance, look for some guidance, and if you maintain the belief or the faith and the optimism, then you're going to see that there is a path that's going to be forward. But yeah, just in general, when planets go through your 12th house, there's this clearing out because this is a definitive ending house, okay? So watch for that. Get as much done as you can before March when you have your birthday and Saturn's in your sign, and then it's going to be a 2.5-year period for you. I'm excited. I'm already starting to kind of figure out what I'm going to be putting together. I know a lot of people really liked my Saturn video that I did years back. And so I think what I'm going to start doing is when Saturn changes signs, I'll do like a Saturn boot camp. So for those of you guys who have Saturn in Pisces or you're having your Saturn return, and if you'd like to know more about that, I'm probably going to be doing that in the new year and giving you some insight into how to navigate that transit. Okay. All right, guys. So that's all I have for you guys today. Enjoy Saturn going direct. It's time to really put your nose to the grindstone between now and the spring so we can really reap all of the benefits and the rewards from Saturn. Obviously, it's going to be kind of colorful, and there's going to be some shakeups next month. So I'm curious to see who's going to win this boxing match. Is it going to be Saturn Aquarius or Uranus and Taurus? Let me know below. I'd love to hear what you guys think because your guess is as good as mine. If you want to join me, I'm going to be having live readings, doing readings on the solar eclipse in Scorpio this Saturday night, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to put the link out today so you can get it early. So if you want to sign up and get a reading and find out what's going to happen with the eclipses for your chart, I'm happy to talk to you all about it. Join me live. You can also support me by giving donations, or you can join my various memberships. There's 3 levels if you would like to support the channel. You want to learn tarot or astrology, click the links below. You go to my website, you can take one of my courses, study at your own pace. We've also got Astro 201 that we're going to start doing in the new year for level 2 intermediate astrology. And you can book a reading with me too. And I have openings that start in 2023. So check out my schedule, check out the links below. You guys enjoy the rest of your week, and I will see you all very soon. Take care.